Let's go to the U.S. Capitol now and our Washington Bureau Chief Jackson Proskow. Jackson, you've been watching the situation there. Set the scene for us.
Robin, the crowd has just started running here because there are some volleys of pepper spray, it seems, going back and forth with police. The crowd is actually larger here today than it was yesterday, and it had been peaceful up until literally just seconds ago, but you can see right now in the crowd there, right in front of the White House, projectiles being thrown by some people in the crowd toward police who had been maintaining a line there, and they are in riot gear at this point. And the response, as we saw yesterday when that happens, is that they fire back. Typically, it's targeted volleys of pepper spray. They're small projectiles that contain pepper spray. Sometimes it's tear gas. But as you just saw, what that does is it sets the crowd running, and it creates a dangerous situation because many of the people here are peaceful. They're not here for that type of interaction. Let's get up on the curb again here, folks. Watch yourselves on the curb. They're clearing the park out right now, Robin, so it's really a tense and dangerous situation here.
It seems during the day the protests are peaceful, but at night it's a different picture.
That's what we've seen, Robin. So this protest started about 3 hours ago, and it was the same situation yesterday where things started out peacefully and then they start to deteriorate. It's either a question of nerves starting to fray or agitators starting to get the crowd worked up. But either way, things change over time. Yesterday, what we saw is that as the evening wore on, things got demonstrably worse, and by the early morning hours, protesters were moving through the streets of Washington. They were setting cars on fire, they were setting buildings on fire, and that's when police stepped up their response and started using rubber bullets and large volleys of tear gas as well.
How big is the police presence there?
It's extensive, and you have to remember Washington has many overlapping police forces. Here in proximity of the White House, policing really falls to the Secret Service, and they sort of call the shots around the White House itself. And then Washington's own police force does the surrounding area, and both are heavily taxed. Of the 17 people who were arrested yesterday in Washington, they say that half of them came from outside of town. But in the melee yesterday, there were 60 Secret Service officers who were reported to have been injured, Robin.
Jackson, let's talk about the political ramifications of this situation. There are accusations that President Donald Trump is inflaming the demonstrations with his tweets. What's he saying now?
And at this hour, President Trump is inside the White House, and the calls for him to speak up, to do something to calm this country are growing louder, but he's simply not responding. Instead, he's firing off tweets for a second straight day that, you're right, seem to inflame the situation. In this case, the president is blaming the protests on the far left, Antifa, as he calls it. Robin, what you're seeing here is people who've been likely maced or pepper sprayed. They're having their eyes washed out because, of course, it's incredibly painful. These are well-organized protests in the sense that there are medics out here. There are people with medical supplies, milk and water to flush people's eyes if it's needed as well.
Are there calls for him to address the nation, to appeal for calm at all?
Reportedly, there is a split within the White House as to how the president should respond to this and how he should handle this. Some of his advisors want him to, others don't want him to. What you've seen, though, consistently is this sort of firewall around the president when it comes to laying the blame for this. And again, the president continues to claim that what he calls Antifa, which would be implied to be far-left organizers, are who to blame. And the president actually tweeted today and suggested that they should be classified as domestic terrorists. The problem with that is that Antifa is not some sort of official organization. That's a very broad term, and many people are worried that it's not a big walk to start lumping in anyone who's protesting as Antifa if they so choose to do so. So that's the concern here, Robin. The president's own Attorney General, Bill Barr, has sort of matched his talking in that regard, and he, of course, is the top law enforcement officer in the nation.
Jackson Proskow in Washington. Stay safe, Jackson.